TEMA Talk is a BS-free zone with smart, funny and educational conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners sharing their stories and insights designed to help you succeed. The result is a video vault of wisdom, strategies and tactics on how to grow your business by increasing revenue, reducing costs and amplifying your market share. Welcome to TEMA Talk, the B2B show created to help entrepreneurs and CEOs succeed. Here is your host, business growth architect and founder of TEMA, Carl M. Gibbons.
Hi everybody and welcome back to TEMA Talk. I hope you've been having a happy, safe, good and profitable time since we last spoke. We're in for another 30 minutes of business banter and badinage, and I have yet another special guest. And I know special guests come every week, and you're all saying to me, Carl, why do you keep saying special guests? Because they are. People that make a difference in your life are special people, and today is absolutely no exception. So what would you say about somebody if I said, well, they bought a company out of bankruptcy, then they, over a period of the next 2 or 3 years, turned it around to become the largest promotions products company in the country, built it up, as I said, from obviously going into bankruptcy to 300 million in revenue, and then took it public. You'd think that was a pretty impressive track record, right? Well, I certainly do. Well, our guest today not only decided that that's what he was going to do, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit later. After he'd done it all, he decided, well, actually, what I really want to do is go on and do leadership development and training. And funnily enough, that's how I met him. So our guest today is Ford Taylor. Ford is a leadership solutions trainer and strategist and speaker. His primary emphasis is on the people that serve the organization. Now, I have had first-hand experience of being on one of Ford's training program, but I actually first met him on a CEO cruise when we were both speakers. So everything he talks about, everything he focuses on, is centered about moving constraints and equipping managers and people to be better leaders. So you've heard enough from me. With that all said, let's get down to it. Ford, welcome to TEMA Talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. It's always good either being on Zoom with you, phone call with you, face to face. It's always good seeing you, my friend. Thank you for all you're doing, the impact you're having. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Now, I gave a brief outline to your background, but I want you to give our viewers just a quick 10-cent tour. To elaborate a little bit more on my introduction.
Well, Carl, when I was 24, almost 25, I was working at a sporting goods store, and I got a call from the bank. They were going to close my screen printer down, the people that did our uniforms. A couple of days later, they called and said, how would you like to own this? So while I was looking for a new one, they called back, and I said, hey, let's give it a shot. When you're 24, 25 years old, you can do anything. And over the next 6 months, we pretty much didn't think we were going to make it. And then we got a strategy that we tried, and it worked. And for the next 9 years, that went really well. Bought some more broken, almost bankrupt companies. Got a call from some venture capitalists. They said, hey, we'd love to join you, take some of our money. And we continued to do that with larger companies. And then all of a sudden, I found myself being the CEO of the largest in our industry, which is really not a goal that I had in mind. But it seemed that that's what happened over the next 16 years. And from that, I left that and partnered up in another consulting company, and that was not allowing me to stop the travel, which what I was trying to do, be at home more with my kids. And then I left that and started what's called a transformation movement, if you will, in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was doing one-off business consulting, and then one of my clients one day called me in his room, in his office, and he asked me, how often do you get these kinds of results when you go into companies? Now his company had actually, in 18 months, was 6 times larger and 10 times more profitable. And he said, how often do you get these kinds of results? And I said, every time. And he said, then why aren't you using this material to do other things besides just consulting? Why aren't you using it for city reaching? And my response to him is, who would listen to me if they really knew who I was? Because as you know, Carl, I had some pretty ugly years in my marriage and things I had done. and I had not gone public with those things, and my wife knew, and she forgave me. But I just didn't think anybody would ever listen to me. So we brought 30 people in the room, gave them a legal pad, and did a leadership brain dump. And then over the next couple of years, somebody came in and put a PowerPoint together and a manual. And, the next thing we know, we're traveling all over the world doing leadership training. And so.
And you're on TEMA Talk.
What's that?
And you're on TEMA Talk.
Yeah, now look at this one, man. I've moved up in the world, buddy. I am on the top now.
Okay. So here's your book. See, still have it, still refer to it, always close by. Let me make sure everybody gets a look at that. Reactional Leadership. There you go. How did the book come about?
Well, for years, people asked me, would you write a book? And I would always respond, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm a talker, not a writer. And then one day, a guy called me and said he felt like he was supposed to be a ghostwriter for me. And, we have this online platform also. And he said, do you have anything in writing? And I said, no. And then I remembered that after I produced the online platform, we Google Doc'd it. So I sent him the Google Doc. He goes, I don't even need to meet with you. I can write the book from the Google Doc. And it just came from a lot of people saying, we'd really appreciate if you would get some of this stuff in a book. So we finally stopped and took the time to do it.
Okay. So leadership, what's the difference between a leader, a manager, an achiever, a hustler, a single shingle warrior? What's the difference?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me, a lot of people, like you asked how the book came about, the leadership training. Let me start with this. Back when I was traveling the first time, I traveled a lot of the world as we were growing our company. And then I stayed home for years, and I started traveling, and I traveled far more the last few years with the blessing of my wife and my children being out of school. But way back when I was doing that, I found something that everybody I met, Carl, everybody almost, was smart, gifted, or talented in at least one area. And many were smart, gifted, or talented in many areas. And almost everybody I met had huge hearts. They truly cared about the people next to them. And I started asking the question, if that's true, what's missing? What's going on in our world that mainly what we hear about are not those people. That's not who the movies are about. That's not who we read about in the paper. And I started realizing that all those people with the big brains and the big heart, that most of what I had seen on leadership, and I'm not trying to be critical, because a lot of the guys I'm talking about are my heroes. And so there's no criticism in this. But most leadership stuff was very inspirational and motivational. But there wasn't a lot out there that was a playbook. It was practical and it was implementable. And so when I started seeing that, I felt like, well, what if we could fix that? And in that process, and of course, growing that company, I taught our leaders early on, okay, the difference in leadership and management, okay, is that we lead people and we manage the processes, the systems, the policies, the procedures. Because if you're trying to manage people, you're miserable and they're miserable. It's the same with children. Manage the curfew, lead your children. And to understand the difference between leadership and management is critical. And they're both needed. One is highly relational, one is highly transactional. And so the name of that book is Relational Leadership. Right. Because we all live on that continuum somewhere, all of us. Either we're highly transactional or we're highly relational. And so when people have the tools, the ingredients, the behaviors for transactional people to become more relational, and relational people to become more transactional, and we become relational, we start understanding how to lead, how to cast vision, serve, teach, train, equip, empower, let go, and evaluate. That's what I call the V-Still model. And then we learn how to manage the processes by identifying, here's our goal, what keeps us from hitting that goal, okay, here's our number one constraint, and we start removing the constraint that keeps us from being able to do those, and all of a sudden these relational teams become far more profitable and far healthier in relationship.
Right. I've heard you say many times over the years that we are currently suffering from a leadership crisis. Now, I know the last, 2020, we've been on a leadership, shall I say, roller coaster. good, bad, or indifferent. The fact is we have. But you've been saying it for a long time before 2020, because you and I go back a few years. Explain to me a little bit what do you mean by that? What's your thinking behind that?
Well, one of those is I talked about that we've raised up leaders that two things have happened. We've taught motivation and inspiration, which can become control and manipulation if we're not careful. So instead of leading with practical and implementable, we might lead with control and manipulation. And so I think we've raised up leaders who care more about what people think about them or how they're seen than they care about the people who actually follow them. And so I think if you could fix that problem, in other words, if I care more about my children than I care about how they feel about me, think how much better I can lead them.
Right.
I mean, when I told my children, that I had cheated on my wife, that was not an easy thing to do. And I told them at 3 different times as they each got old enough to at least comprehend what I had done. Well, Sandra and I have now helped a lot of couples that have gone through this. And the one thing they say is we never want our children to know. And I respond to them, then you care more about yourself than you do your children. I want my children to know if you're ever tempted, you call your dad, don't go there. Well, it's the same thing in business, churches. The more vulnerable transparency that we walk in, I mean, that's what people are looking for in leadership. If I make a mistake with my children, we teach this thing called the 6-step apology. I've got no issue apologizing to my children. I got no issue apologizing to those people who follow me. I make mistakes. I'm human. What would it look like if you had a president of the country, Carl, who made a mistake, and instead of defending the mistake, apologized to the country for making the mistake? They'd win by a landslide. I mean, they would win by, these are the kinds of leaders that people want to follow. And so what we're trying to do is give people the tools to become that kind of leader.
Right. I've always been a believer that as you learn more. There's never a point where you go, that's it. If you like, I've read the book.
I got it now.
I got it now.
I still don't have it.
Yeah. I got it now. As you learn more because it opens more questions. It opens other doors. It opens other paths. And I believe that one of the problems that entrepreneurs and business owners have in general is I do believe that a lot of them have read the book. They have got to chapter 12 or the final chapter, and like, that's it now, I've done. Or I've come out of college, I've got my MBA, and like, they just don't keep evolving. Why do we need to keep evolving? Why do we need to keep learning? Why do we need to keep moving forward?
Well, Carl, you and I both agree on this. The greatest leaders never stop learning. We're always on a path of learning. And we know the older we get, the more we find out.
The less we know, right? Yeah.
And so the more we find out we don't know, the less we know, the more we still see that there's a need to learn because we're all still human. And most of us, our learning can come from different ways. It can be through our mistakes. I get told frequently, thank you for making so many mistakes in your career and letting us learn from them,
Right.
Okay, in your personal life. Or it can learn from listening to others who've made those mistakes to keep from having to make them. But as you know, as when we're younger, we think we're invincible, that we're not going to make those mistakes. And probably the best thing that can happen to a leader is to make it early. Make a big one early, and then they get humbled, if you will, and from that. And so I think it's ego. I think that's the why. And remember, if you read the book, a book, whatever it is, you've got the first step to change. That's just the first step, and that's the new knowledge. Well, the second step to change is an attitude or a feeling. And if the new knowledge, if you don't have the feeling and the attitude to apply the new knowledge, nothing changes. It just stays in your brain. But when it starts getting into your heart, into a feeling, into an attitude, then you can get the third level of change, which is your action or a behavior. Now, once you start getting a change in behavior or action, you now daily start determining what is your future outcome. because how you think today determines how you act today, and how you act today, how you feel today, and how you feel determines how you act, and how you act and behave today determines the future. Now, here's the interesting part. In any organization, that's a company, a family, a church, a government, a city, or a nation, it only takes 3 to 5%, statistically speaking, to shift a whole culture. That's it. And
3 to 5%.
You can read it. It's a book by a man named Malcolm. I use the term 3 to 15% because one time inside of a company, I started in the middle of the organization. And by starting in the middle, it took a bigger number. But almost every organization that I start with the CEO and the executives, 3 to 5% can shift it. You can read it yourself. It's called the tipping point. Right. In a whole nation, 3 to 5% can shift the culture of a nation. And I won't give examples. We know some of them. So why is it that those people with the big brains and the huge hearts have so much trouble shifting an organization when that's all it takes? I say it's because they don't have the practical, implementable, because Carl, leadership's like making a cake, okay? And when you make a cake, there's some great tasting things that go in there, and there's some terrible things that go in there that you would never eat on their own. Right. You wouldn't eat flour and baking soda on their own. Raw eggs, most people don't. But when you mix those with chocolate and milk and syrup and water, something happens to that thing. Smells good when you cook it, and it tastes good when you eat it. But most of us only want the chocolate and the pineapple and the milk. Most of us aren't willing to go through what it takes to add the flour and the raw eggs into what we might need to do to become that kind of leader. But when enough leaders are willing to do that, they can shift their organization very, very quickly.
I always refer to the power of 3. I think there is a huge disconnect between here, here, and here. Something goes wrong. Nobody gets up of a morning. Well, let's rephrase that. The vast majority of people don't get up of a morning and say, I'm going to screw this up. I'm really going to make a mess of this, right? They get up of a morning and say, I want to make my business, my family, my community, my country, I want to make it better. I want to make it a better place than when I woke up this morning, when I go to bed tonight, right? So I believe that that's there, and I believe that that's intrinsically there in most people. And then I believe that they have ways of doing it. Now, I will defend to the hilt. You're right to take that route, and I know you respect my right if I want to take that route, right?
Absolutely.
All right. But something happens then, and this starts to happen, and it just all falls apart. And I just wish sometimes business owners, managers, and our leaders would just take a little bit more time before they get to this bit to almost like, hold on, when I started out, this was good. It made perfect sense up here. I've got to get a few more people on board, and I've got to be a little bit more open to the route, the direction. I'm going to go I-75. You might want to go I-95, but eventually we're all going to end up in the same place. But then this whole thing goes wrong. Do you agree with that?
That's exactly what happens. And what happens is it's the way our brain works, okay? And we got stuff in our brain that happened to us in our past. And that stuff that comes with passion or emotion plus purpose or meaning, it goes into a part of our brain called the hippocampus. And then later in life, when we see something that resembles what happened before, we immediately say our brains can't deal with it. They jump to it's going to have the same outcome as before. Now, when you combine that with our self-identities, and our self-identities are made up of 3 things. It's all the things that have happened to us in our life. It's those things that happen. It's the thoughts it's the thoughts that we believe to be true about those things. It's the thoughts we believe to be true as we compare ourselves to others. And it's the thoughts we believe to be true on what we think others think about us. So think about our past, the stuff that's in our brain. Something happens that we think is going to have an outcome that may not be true, but our brain says it's going to be. It runs through the lens of that self-identity, which is down in our heart.
Yeah.
And then we all have core beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, your core belief is to take I-35 and my core belief is to take I-45. I see the difference in you and me and a lot of people. I'm fine if you take 35, and you're fine if I take 45. But a lot of people will sit in the room because of their hippocampus, the things from the past, their self-identities, and their core beliefs, and they will argue to the hilt that 35 or 45 is the only path. And what happens when that happens, we can't stay at the table.
Right.
And if you make a commitment on the front end as leaders, in 2002, started this thing in Cincinnati, and leaders made a commitment. We are going to stay at the table. Say whatever you want. We talked about racism, feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, orphans. We talked about hard subjects, but we stayed at the table. Now, the police department's on the team. Business people are there. Pastors are there. But government leaders, they stayed at the table through tough conversations. And we had these conversations about helping me understand, when you look at me, why you see me as a racist. And because they loved me enough to tell me those things, I realized how much unconscious bias I had. Well, if nobody tells me those things, I keep doing the same thing over and over again. And now I'm killing your hippocampus every time I use a word that I don't even know that word is a problem. But if we can stay at the table and have those conversations, knowing that 35 and 45 can both get us to the same city,
Right.
I got news for you. We now become part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Not part of the problem. And I think that's where the problem starts, because you and I both know we're going to end up here, right? Like, you're going that way, I'm going. I don't think everybody's decided where they want to end up on. I think that's a huge part of the problem. Somebody wants to build a castle over here and somebody wants to build a castle over here. It just doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, working from home, the WFH, right? Whole new shift in lifestyle, in culture, in approach. I can remember as a kid, my mother saying things like, A, when we were off school, or B, when father was at home, I'll be glad when you lot get back to work and you're out from under my feet, right? Well, we're all under each other's feet now because we're all working from home. Now, as you know, I've been working from home for over 31 years. So I come from a place of, I don't know what all this fuss is about. Why is everybody getting all excited? But there are going to be challenges with this, right? Not just the challenges of, I've now got to take my desk from my office to my home, right? But now I'm literally at home. Maybe the kids are around all the time. Maybe the dog keeps scratching on the door wanting to go for a walk. Maybe my partner keeps saying, oh, well, can we do this? Or can you help me tidy up the kitchen, do some washing? Whatever it is. There's these millions of distractions. Give us some of your thoughts on how we can sort out this new life balance of working from home, because we've still got to put food on the table, right? We've still got to make a living and maintain this healthy relationship with our friends, family, colleagues, etc.
Yeah, because Carl, you're right on. Last year, for example, going into this year, I was gold on one airline, platinum on another, and 1K, which is one step above platinum on a third airline.
Yeah.
I'm loving my recliner over that airplane seat. I got news for you. I'm loving sitting in this chair than that chair. Yeah. And so for me, my office has been at home like yours for 20 years, but I've been on a lot of flights during that time. For 10 of them in between, I didn't do much travel. And so here we are back at home for the last 3 or 4 days. All 3 of our kids have been home. Okay. The one that's married that lives in New York, they've been home since March. And now are saying they may not go back until at least September, maybe the first of the year. Now, we're loving that because we have a great relationship with our children. Our middle child, who's an accountant in Indianapolis, she's been here for about a week and a half, and she was here about a month ago for about a week and a half. We'd love to have them all here all the time. I mean, we love having our children at home. Everybody's not necessarily in that same place. So how do you do that? Well, number one, when conflict comes, because see, conflict is not bad. Unresolved conflict is bad.
Right.
Okay. Conflict plus resolution equals unity, engagement, and in a company, productivity. In a family, intimacy. In a friendship, a higher level of friendship. And so have a tool in place on how are you going to resolve conflict. Just have it there because they're going to come. And don't go to sleep with conflict. Just deal with it quickly. And if you can do that, you'll be amazed how peaceful the home can be. And when you get online, like right now, people look at you and go, they look pretty much at peace for someone who's been at home and locked in for 3 months. I mean, we went through the corona with our daughter, when she came home from New York. And so we had to deal with it early. We were early adopters of that, but deal with conflict quickly. You ready? Do a lot of affirmations. Talk to your family, talk to the people but affirm them, look them in the eye, thank them. My wife got up this morning, made pancakes for me. I think I thanked her at least 3 times already. And of course, I take advantage of those because I love to kiss my wife because she's a hot babe, and so I get a little benefit out of that too. I give her a kiss when I thank her. But be affirming and less judgmental.
Yep.
Start looking for the good in people,
right,
and don't look for the bad. And I could give you 10 more tips, but just those 2 alone, I mean, they're game changers.
Give me one for the leader that's struggling with managing and leading at a distance.
Right. Yeah. So what's happening is, especially for those of us that are used to being face to face. And so I would say if you move now, because as you know, Carl, a lot of huge companies are saying, we're not going back.
Yeah.
This is way too good.
I can see the CFOs now lying through the rent line, right? Lying through the rent. We've just saved ourselves 50 grand a month, 20 grand a month, whatever that, but it's huge. It's going to be a huge number.
It's going to be a huge number. I mean, it's going to be a huge number. And they're finding through research that their good employees are more productive at home than they were at work.
Yep.
Okay. And they're setting up these small offices where people can come in and have their meetings and then go back home and go to work. So I would say if you're struggling with it, okay, one of the things that we have in the book and the training is the 9 dynamics of change, is learn what the dynamics of change are. Okay, because change continues to happen. And when we go through change, you ready? It's uncomfortable.
Right.
We feel awkward.
Yep.
It's ill at ease. Now, what do? You let people know what to expect the best you can. Expect the unexpected. I wish I could go through all 9 of them right now. But learn to deal with those 9 dynamics in yourself and others. And the second big thing is to realize that everything we communicate to one another is a combination of our body language, our tone of voice, and our words. Okay. So as we go into this new place, do as much Zoom, whatever tool you want to use, where you can see people's facial expressions. So you can see what they're feeling, because their facial expression and their tone is 93%. And only 7% is what they're saying. So give them an opportunity to interact where they can see each other, even if they can't sit face to face. So that would be 2 big ones. But know what those dynamics of change are, learn them, get the tools to overcome them, and you'll find that going through change isn't near as hard as most people make it out to be.
Embrace the change. Embrace change.
That's it.
Don't fight it. Embrace it.
That's it. And again, one of the dynamics, you ready, is change can be fun.
Right.
I don't know anybody in the world that teaches that dynamic except us. If they teach it, I've not heard it. But change can be fun. How? You ready? Embrace the change and do it with others who also embrace it. If you're trying to make change with people who don't embrace it, you're miserable and they're miserable. Now we come back and give them our discipline model on how to deal with those people. But don't try to do this with what we call lean outers. Okay, because they're not going to embrace it. Let the lean outers lean on out and go do it someplace else. You're about to have 35 million new people to choose from. Okay, upgrade your team if you get the chance. Let people know we're going to come out of this better than we went in. Say it out loud. We're going to be stronger as a company. I started saying this the first week. We're going to be stronger as a company. We're going to be stronger as a family coming out of this than going in. So let's go into it knowing we're going to be better and stronger and plan towards that. So just the way you say it, just your attitude, it makes a huge difference in how you lead your team.
I agree. As always, just fabulous insights. I love it. we're coming to the sort of the last part of the our show today. I just want to take a slightly different approach, and I want to do dig into a little bit of Ford, find out a little bit more about what makes him tick. Some of it fun, some of it insights, and it's short and sharp. And let's see where it takes it. Least favorite business word, Ford. What's your least favorite business word?
Any cussing in business is my least favorite word. Cursing has no place, in my opinion.
Okay.
Makes you look stupid.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
I would say the best piece was everybody won't do it exactly like you will, but the job will still get done.
Okay. What do you consider to be the biggest misstep, or I won't use the word mistake, but I will use the word mistake, that you've ever made in business?
When my private life did not line up with my public life, that definitely brought on a lot of stress. It made my brain get smaller, and I didn't make as good of business decisions during that time.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse? What's the most overused word or phrase
that I overuse?
Yeah.
Golly, a lot of the. I'll actually use a term like TFA, that's thoughts, feelings, and action. And somebody else will be talking about something else, and it'll just blurt out of my mouth. And I'll just say, I can't even get over myself. And so I'll use terms that we use that make no sense to anybody else unless they've been through us. And I immediately say, can't get out of my own way.
I got you. So we all have that tune where we want to get ourselves psyched up for whatever reason it is. What's that tune for Ford? Whether it before he goes on stage, whether it before he gives a talk, the Rocky tune. What's Ford's Rocky tune?
Well, my kids, when we were younger, there was a song called 911, Burning Up the Dance Floor, and they have a nickname for me. They call me Gerald, and they say 911, look at Gerald burning up the dance floor. So it's kind of a fun thing there.
Okay. Which living person do you most admire?
Golly, there are so many. I'd say my wife, Sandra.
Okay. I would agree with that. Great lady, and a great dancer.
Yes, yeah, we love dancing, as you know.
Hey, just a quick. I saw this guy. He disappeared on me. We were chatting away at the bar. Now there's a surprise, right? We were chatting away at the bar, and he and Sandra disappears. The next thing you know, I look up, and they're on the ballroom floor. And man, I'm telling you, I thought I was watching the ballroom dancing program. I thought, man, these guys can cut it. So good on you. All right, favorite hero of fiction.
Favorite hero of fiction, Yoda.
Oh, that's my man. Favorite quote?
Golly, that's a tough question. There are so many good ones. All right, my favorite quote probably, it's love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and flesh. And the second one is equal to the first. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Quoted by Jesus.
That's all good ones. All good ones. If you were to pick another profession other than the two very successful ones that you've had, what would you like to have a go at? What would you like to do?
I almost became a professional bowler when I was in college, and if my joints and my muscles would still get loose enough, I'd probably have a little fun being a seniors bowler. But I'm not sure they'd get back to that anymore. That'd be fun.
All right. Okay. Last two. Ready?
I'm ready.
Does Ford want to be in control or in charge?
Is that a multiple choice, or is that a yes or no?
It's a multiple choice. Do you want to be in control, or do you want to be in charge?
Wow, I want to be in control of my own life, of my own destiny, but I don't want to be in control of other people.
Okay, good answer. Good answer. I laid that one out on the side special, right? Last one. If this program could connect you with anybody, prince, pauper, potentate, politician, rich man, beggar man, poor man, thief, anybody, if they're watching this and they turn to the person sitting there and say, get a hold of this Ford Taylor guy. I got to speak to him. I need to have a meeting with him. Who's it going to be? Who do you want to watch this? Who do you want to connect with?
I'd love to have
Anybody.
I'd love to have 1 hour with President Trump.
Phone him now. And I promise you, Mr. President, that hour will be phenomenal because I've had many of them. It'll be worth every second. There you go. Because he watches this all the time, you know, right?
Okay, somebody's watching that. Somebody may watch it that goes, you know what? Maybe an hour with this guy. Who knows?
So there is going to be somebody that wants to have an hour with you. If they want to do that, how do they get hold of you?
Well, they can go to our website, transformlead.com. If they want to reach me directly, on the 23rd, I'm releasing a new website and a new podcast called FordTaylorTalks.com. Because, as you know, we're having to do things differently now.
Yep.
I've never done those things before, so we're going to have a lot of blogs and a lot of different things on that website. But that's going to be released on the 23rd of June. So,
Good
but
stuff.
it's transformlead.com now. Can go through our office or on the 23rd, FordTaylorTalks.com.
Excellent stuff. Ford, I can't thank you enough. And everybody, I can't thank you enough for watching. But we've just gone through another 30 minutes of business banter and badinage. Thanks again to our guest, Ford Taylor. If nothing else, make sure you check out his book. It's a great read. I refer to it all the time. Thanks for watching and listening. Don't forget to visit TEMA's Video Vault of Wisdom at thirdeyemanagement.com, where we share all the other TEMA Talks episodes, and they'll give you strategies and tactics on how to grow your business. I want to thank the team at Guerrilla Media for helping make this happen. They twiddle all the knobs and do all the fun stuff. Okay, so until the next time, I want you to stay safe. I want you to stay in touch, but I want you to stay profitable. And with that, we're out.